I would think that it would be strange if living in the world that I live in today, not to take advantage of all the incredible ways to show us God all around us. We live in a day and age of incredible, amazing technology, and it would almost be just so unfortunate if the only way that I chose to declare or explain God to you would be simply with words. It would be unfortunate. It's almost like you would be missing out on something. The saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, experiences, feeling, seeing things, all give us the data and the information that allow us to kind of interact with God and understand God. So if I were to kind of return back to the way I used to kind of teach, it would almost be kind of dull in my mind because I'm simply using words. Don't you think that living in a world that we like we live in today, that it is but honors God to use all of the vehicles and all of the sources that we have accessible to us to help us to see, because we have cameras now that can slow things down, that can speed things up. We have microscopes that can look deeply into things. We have telescopes that allow us to see further away. And these are things that we're learning that aren't just by faith, they really are. There really are things that we are aware of and that are factual, that exist. So all of these things help us to understand God. So we're going to take advantage of that this morning especially. We've been doing that in all of our services, but we're going to do it by giving you an opportunity a little bit later to participate. We're going to continue to show some video clips. They're going to help kind of weave this together. As we talk about the soul today, we kind of ventured into that territory last week, and I'm not sure really, even as a Christian growing up in the church, that I fully understood what the soul was. I would have probably said, yes, it's eternal, but that's probably all I would have really known or explained, and I want you to understand more. And there is a way you can understand more, and we're beginning to have a better understanding of the soul as we better see God all around us and as we see ourselves and who we are. Jesus said these words, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what will a man give in exchange for his soul?" It's as if Jesus was saying, you can live life not out of the soul, but out of the mind. But is living life out of the mind the way life should be lived, or is living life out of the soul the way that life should be lived? We're going to talk about that part of you that is eternal. We're going to talk about that part of you that has really always been around from the foundation of the world in some form or fashion. That part of you that has come out of God, that really is the way that Jesus lived his life. And I think he came to make us aware that this is the life he wants us to live, a life lived out of our soul. Now, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we explain that? We're going to talk about that. There's various words that can be used to explain this experience, but regardless of the words that are used, we're going to try to help you and I live out of our souls. Live out of our soul this week. Live out of our soul today. So it must be pretty important and vital for Jesus to say words like that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to actually put the soul under a microscope. And we're going to put it under a microscope and kind of look at maybe what we believe it is, what science has proven that it may be. So we're not just kind of taking a perspective of what we think or what might be. We're actually looking at some of the things that science is showing us that the soul is or that it isn't, that we in spiritual circles have believed, but now science is proving a lot of this. You know, the thing about using technology is you may not recognize what this is, but this is kind of one of the older versions of what is called a printing press. And anytime religion, and anytime God, I should say, anytime there's been a spreading of the wonderful news of God, it has been through technology. You may not realize this, but back when the gospel really took off in Europe, it was because of this. It was because of technology of that day. Because the scholars and because the people took advantage of the cutting-edge technology of their day. That's how the Bible was printed. That's how spiritual information spread, is through, and that was one of the first. So that's really what we're trying to do today, is to take advantage of the technology that is around us to see videos, to have experiences of seeing what things look like under a microscope or through a telescope, so that we might be able to learn more about the soul. The interesting thing about the soul is to be able to learn about the soul, we've kind of got to get to the soul. And to get to the soul, you have to kind of move through, like with a machete going through a forest. You have to kind of move through some debris and find the soul underneath covering, the main of which is your mind. The mind is purposeful. The mind is a gift. It is an amazing thing. Your brain is contained in your mind. However, the brain, or the mind, should I say, rather than being a tool of helping us, it can drive us crazy. It can distract us from our soul. We can hear what it's saying, and it's like the clouds that go through the sky, and they come and they go, and thoughts are like that. They continue to come and they continue to go, and we wish we could turn it off or turn it on. But the best thing to do is to recognize a thought is but a thought and just let it go. Just like a cloud, just let it go. Don't worry, another one will come. Let it go. But to get through thinking, to get to the soul, can be challenging and can be a task in and of itself. But we're going to do our best, because there's beauty to be found when you live from your soul. There's love, there's kindness, there's the fruits of the Spirit, there's living in the Spirit. Those are terms we're all familiar with. Regardless of which terms that we use, what we're talking about is living from the Spirit man, the soul man or woman, to live from our soul. So here's kind of the first challenge. Don't believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you think. You've kind of got to put a little bit of thought to that. Because everything you think is not necessarily as it is. Mankind would have said that the earth was the center of the universe. That's what I think. What did we come to find out? That the sun is the center of the universe. Mankind would have said that mankind would never go beyond the hemisphere of this planet to a moon. But man has done that. We can get caught in the arguments of the mind. You know, you will find out that the mind gets agitated, but the soul can remain at rest. Wouldn't you love to have the freedom of having an unagitated mind? As we learn to live from the soul, the deeper part of who we are, we start experiencing that. So don't believe everything you think. As a matter of fact, I do not see you necessarily as you are, but as I am. We talked about that in the life of Jesus a few weeks ago, that Jesus did not see people the way they were. He saw them the way He was. There's a difference, a major difference. Jesus saw people because He was seen from His soul, and He was looking at other souls. He saw people as He was. An interesting part of this statement is science is proving this next statement. Every perceived object, as I look at Tom here in the front row, is an object, he actually is a reflection of my of my brain. So every perceived object that you think you see It's not like there's a picture of that in your brain. You know, science we're learning more about the brain, and we're starting to understand the brain more. It's not like when you see an apple that there's a picture of an apple in your brain. You've been conditioned through your lifetime to learn what something is or isn't. So a lot of our thinking is simply recycled thinking. It's the thinking of those before us. It's the thinking of someone else. So we have to ask ourselves, and as we become aware, right now, all we're trying to do is to help us all become aware. Just to become aware of our soul, which is different from our mind. Every perceived object is a reflection. So when we look at someone and they're an enemy, it's actually maybe our own mind that is perceiving that when they maybe are not our enemy. The value of living from the soul starts beginning to be seen as we have discussions like this. The way we perceive things to be versus the way things really are. The mind only perceives what it thinks it perceives on account of its conditioning. There's nothing greater in our lives than what's called social conditioning. Through our lifetime, we become conditioned to think or to believe a certain way. Does that mean it's true? We have to ask ourselves those kind of questions. A lot of times, a lot of the ways that we're thinking is driving us crazy when those ways of thinking are the problem. The problem isn't the problem. The problem is the perception that there is a problem. Interesting. You may say, well, I don't believe that. Well, don't believe. This is not about changing anyone. It's about coming yourself to an understanding of what brings you peace and how Jesus has come to help us find this level of soul living. Soul living. So the mind only perceives what it thinks it perceives on account of its conditioning. You notice that's bad. Today's a terrible day. Well, where did you get your definition of a terrible day? Who taught you that definition of it? What is it we've become to think that a good day should be? Well, that's a good day. I had fun yesterday. What's our definition? What begins to happen as we begin to become liberated from a lot of the ways of thinking that have kept our soul from being seen. Your soul is longing to express itself. Your soul is longing to be seen in your everyday life, but it's got to be uncovered from some of the stuff. Well, I don't know of a better way to show you this than to give you a test. It's a fun test. Before we show you this video clip, which is going to be part of the test, I will give you a forewarning. You're going to be asked to look at this video and count the number of times that the team in white passes the basketball. That's all you're going to be asked. I want you to, it will start pretty quickly, and they're going to introduce it with a brief statement that will tell you the same thing I'm telling you. But I want to tell you, if you're like me, you've got to watch it from the moment the clip comes on. Count the number of times that the team that is dressed in white passes the basketball. Have you got it? Let's watch this clip.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
That's actually a commercial for motorcycles. I don't know about you. I thought, what dancing bear? I was so focused on what I had been asked, I didn't see everything around me. I didn't see a dancing bear. I flipped it on again. I thought, there's a dancing bear. I didn't even see it. They're doing tests like that to help us to learn about our brains and how a lot of what we think we see is just a perception and that we're not really seeing everything that is. My friend, when you look around you, you are not seeing everything that God is. We're only just seeing a small portion. We're only just seeing the white team pass the basketball. We're not seeing the dancing bear. As I see video clips like that, they greatly encourage me. And maybe that's why Jesus, when he was on the cross, he could say words like we are familiar with when he said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. It's like he was saying they're not aware. They're not aware. There are people right now in your life that are treating you in a way that they're just not aware they're treating you that way. There's people abusing you. There's people talking about you. There's family members that you have, you love, and you care for. And you fit into that category, and so do I, that we're just simply not aware of. We're not aware. We're not aware of that. So our goal today is just to begin to make you more aware of being aware, of listening to your soul and recognizing how your mind is what is agitated, not your. It is never your soul that is agitated. It is never your spirit that is agitated. It is always the mind that is agitated. Jesus lived out of this soul experience as he manifested a connection to God the Father. And he could say things that we thought, wow, he was just a good moral person, a good moral man. That's why he could, or because he was God, that's why he could say that. I don't believe that's the reason he could say. He said those things because he was at a level of awareness they simply were not at, but they could be at, of living out of their soul. There's a hypnosis of social conditioning. There's the reality that you and I only ever see a small amount. The truth is, ever since man has traveled to the moon, we have never seen this world the same way. You're going to watch a few-minute clip here that's going to give you an idea. You're going to take off from the Himalayas. Have you ever been to the Himalayas before? I never have. But you're going to get, have you? Jane has. Well, you're going to recognize the picture maybe. If you were up an airplane, you will. And we're going to take off from the Himalayas in Tibet. And you're going to travel to the sun, to the moon. You're going to travel to the center of the... As a matter of fact, what you're going to see is now the universe that is known to mankind. It'll blow your mind. And it's much bigger than you ever thought. Watch this clip. Creation is much larger than I ever thought. Aren't you humbled to just think about that God would want us to be aware of His incredible love for us and all that is, that we can actually see this now, that we have the privilege of living in a day where people can never see the world as it is now, but we can see the world in ways that generations before us never have. Now, we would look at the problems of the world, and there are problems and there are difficulties, but on the other side is that technology is allowing us to see an amazing God that is so wonderful, beautiful, worthy of worship, worthy of gratitude. That my needs, my problems, my situations, my life are all things He is aware of. Ever since man has traveled to the moon, we've never seen the earth the same. We've never seen the world the same. And just because I cannot see things, as even years ago, I could not see those other galaxies. We could not see those other galaxies. But it didn't mean that they weren't there. They're there. That was our known universe. We know, we have factual accounts through astronomy that those things really exist. So we're trying to develop our awareness of all that is around us and that all that is within us so we can be full of gratitude. That will cause people to come to God. That will cause people to worship and serve our incredible Creator as they see and experience that this amazing God is so much more than what we ever thought. I must confess, though, you're kind of maybe like me. Up to this point in my life, there's kind of been an unconscious participation in life, unknowingly. You're going through life, but not really conscious of what we just saw, not really aware of maybe there's a soul that while my mind is agitated, my soul, I just got to access that. My soul is as full of peace and love as it always has been. And it always can be. Things are much more connected and working as they were created to, as we look at nature and we see things. This final clip that I want to show you this morning is in line with helping us to kind of understand through the look at what is called our natural pollinators, bats, bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies. Some of them are challenged to be going extinct, but as we are able to slow down the camera and look at them, you're going to get to see a bee in the middle of a flower taking the honey, the nectar. Amazing. Let this film speak for itself. Watch this. You know, never before have our eyes got to see such closeness to become aware of just how these things work. Our desire here at Fairmeadow and Sunday morning is try to make us aware of the soul, to look deeply into the soul. Just what is there behind the action. What I'm realizing in my own journey is this truth. Unknowingly, my own thinking is the cause of much of my own suffering. If I had a blank board in front of us this morning, I would draw 3 circles. One would be body, soul, and mind. I would put the soul at the top, then I would put mind, then I would put body. I am convinced and I believe that as our soul is made whole, then our mind becomes more whole. And out of the mind produces a health in the body. You know, they tell us that nearly 80% of illnesses have to do with ultimately worry, stress, things that we just are in our minds, and we think about things. So in other words, as the mind is cleared up, guess what? It almost creates simultaneously natural healing in our bodies. God wants you and I to be free from suffering, but I think only that suffering is relieved as we get better in touch with our soul. As you and I get better in touch with our soul. So you kind of might draw it this way. As we better understand our soul, our suffering goes down. The less we understand our soul, the suffering goes up. You know, you can be a follower of Jesus. You can, say, my debt is paid. I'm on my way to heaven. That still doesn't mean you're out of this ring of suffering. But the more you can relate out of your soul, the more that suffering goes down in your life. Because you begin to realize that a lot of your suffering we create with our way of thinking about what should be. Where did we ever get a definition of what the perfect life should be? Where did your definition come? It probably came from some recycled thinking somewhere. But is that how life should be? Who says it should be that way? Is that the truth, that life should be that way? Well, I think God should be that way. Well, then you're giving us your ideas about God. So is your ideas about God really true or right or correct or as they should be? We want to release. So do you believe you have a soul? What do we really mean when we say the soul? Where is the soul? Where are you? Is anybody home? You ever thought you looked at someone, is anybody home? You've probably said that because somebody's not living out of their soul. If you've said, is anybody home? It's because we're living out of our mind. I've done that. I've done that many times, and I still do that. The interesting thing that science has shown us is you cannot be found in your brain. And you can't be found in your... In other words, as we ask ourselves, who is asking these questions? Neuroplasticity is proven, which is a new science, has proven that you are not... There's a consciousness that is not in your brain. It's just there. Which I believe is the spiritual reference to the soul or the spirit. That has been come out of God. So if you're not in your brain and you're not in your body, where are you? Your soul is. It just happens to be going for a ride in this form right now, and it will shed this form, but there is a soul that for all intents and purposes really is timeless. And I really believe that's what Jesus came to help uncover this timeless, God-breathed image, likeness of God that is within us to get away, to see the beauty so we can live out of that. Not just get a ticket to heaven, but to live out of that experience, out of our soul. So you can be found, and where the real you is your soul. There is a timeless part of you, but it's just becoming aware of the soul. that you really are your soul and not your mind-created self. You know, this self that's been created with all of this form. I am my looks, I am my appearance, I am Jeff, I am this body, I am those things. You are those things temporarily, but that is not completely who you are. You are birthed out of the womb of God, and that is your soul. And right now, it is quiet. It is peaceful, and all is well. But you have to get through the mind to find that place of stillness that reconnects you with the way God designed you to be. When the mind ceases its agitation, the soul isn't agitated. It's the mind has to cease its agitation. You know, I've chosen this morning, thinking about how God uses everything, and we're going to close the service in just a moment, and we're going to close with a bang. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I want to you to take off your listening ears right now and put in your participation ears. And you know, there's a song that you may not believe. You may not believe me when I tell you this, but I believe with all my heart that the Spirit of God put this song in my heart this week. And I tell you what, there's a few members of our praise band that's going to come up and help me right now. And I want to ask everybody to stand with me. And you've got to stay around for this bang conclusion. Because the truth is, we are soul people. We are soul people. And the only song I could think of was a song back from years ago. As a teenager, that I saw it on Saturday Night Live, and it was called "I'm a Soul Man." It was by the Blues Brothers. And so we even have visual presentation, and we're going to get to see the live clip from the Soul Man years ago done on Saturday Night Live. And when we get to the chorus, I think these guys maybe will help us sing a little bit. Now, I'm not sure we have the dance moves. I've been working on the Dan Aykroyd. I think he does like that. And I may give you a little bit of that. I've got to get my glasses on. But as we get ready for this clip, just remember, you are a soul person. Soul, S-O-U-L. So let's just, is it okay to have a good time? We're just going to have a good time as we close with this. So watch this clip as we rejoice together. We need some volume on that. Sing the chorus. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. Soul man. Soul man. man. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul. All right, all right. Oh, I tell you what, I believe God uses everything to inspire us. It's amazing what He uses. And just remember this week, you're a soul man, a soul woman. Live out of your soul this week. Greet one another. Have a great day.